One would imagine that a lot of people click that skip button because they want to be as efficient as possible, and I don't blame you. But if you missed out on the story and you want to know what the story is about, I got you. I fully paid attention to the story. I took my time with it. It's been a whole week. So yeah, I'm going to explain the story for everyone that just skipped it to be time efficient. I got you. I am going to explain the whole Wuthering Waves main story. Yes, this is going to be almost 7 hours worth of content condensed into one video. So if you appreciate the video, all I ask is that you comment your thoughts, because I actually do want to start a discussion on the story. I do think it is good, and the usual, you know, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. But without further ado, here is the entire main story of Wuthering Waves explained. We start strong with a very cool cinematic that takes place in what looks to be space. We see this, what I describe as a sort of black hole eclipse dimensional rift, and the MC is face to face with a goddess. The goddess uses her powers and punches a hole into our chest that kind of looks like the dimensional rift we saw. So for now, I'll assume that her abilities are these dimensional rifts. She takes these little light cores out of our chest and implants it into our right arm, giving us a tacit mark and leaving us with a little surprise for later. Then she pushes us away with a sad expression on her face, and the rift starts to spiral, and we see ice start to appear behind the goddess as if she's about to be sealed off. She looks at us one last time with a smile, and then we are sucked into the rift and end up under sea. Those light cores lead us to the surface of this upside down sea, and in the front of us is the world of Solaris 3. We then wake up, and in the front of us are Yang Yang and Chixia in the Gorge of Spirits. We are on the outskirts of Jinzhou Huanglong. They question where we're from because we don't look like a local, but we can't remember anything. Chixia says that Baji didn't tell them that we would have these types of effects, indicating that they kinda knew we were coming and came to pick us up. Yang Yang then senses that a tacit feel is taking place nearby, and Chixia says that their terminals don't seem to have service, so they can't contact Baji. So together we start to travel over to where Baji is, and they decided to call us Rover since we can't remember what our name is. They also point out that we have a tacit mark and a terminal, so that means we're a resonator. We then clear some tacit discords and make it to this statue. Then while looking at the statue, we get a vision of a dragon. We ask about the statue, and Yang Yang explains that the statue is of Zhue, the sentinel of Zhenzhou. We learn that there is one capital in 6 cities in Huanglong, and each city has their own sentinel. The sentinels of Huanglong share similarities in appearance, but are all different. We learn that sentinels are present where civilizations thrive, and Huanglong has the most coexisting sentinels because of its long history and vast land. The sentinels of Huanglong used to be a single entity, but they were split and are now each responsible for a part of Huanglong. We learn that there are also other sentinels in other regions, but far fewer compared to Huanglong. In Huanglong, most of them take the shape of a dragon, but in other places, they can manifest in many different forms, some even beyond our imagination. We also learned that only the Sentinel's appointed resonator is allowed in its proximity, which for Zhue is the magistrate of Zhenzhou, which is Zhenqi. And after fighting some more enemies, we leave the Gorge of Spirits. Yang Yang explains that we are in the middle of the etheric sea, and the longer it lasts, the stronger the enemy will be that emerges. We then meet up with Baji, who is near a tacit field, and she examines us to make sure that we are okay. Then suddenly, the Crownless emerges from the tacit field, and we fight and defeat the Crownless. Then we see that it turned into a echo / reverberation. We learn that everything in this world is made up of frequencies, and every sound generates a reverberation. And after enemies are defeated, they turn into echoes, which we can capture in our terminals. And with that echo, we can utilize some of the abilities of that enemy. And the terminal itself can also detect enemies. We then try to absorb the Crownless echo into our terminal, but it doesn't work. Then the group decides to head back to report what happened to the city hall and academy. But right before we leave, this happens.
I'm starving.
A voice came from the rover saying that they're hungry, and we suddenly capture the Crownless with our body through our tacit mark. They then question what kind of ability we just used, but we don't know. Then suddenly we get another vision, this time of the Dreamless. Baji states that absorbing an echo with a human body isn't impossible, but it's not very common. Then Yang Yang says that she remembers in the comprehensive mirror of historians in the opening Huanglong section,
A celestial being descended, commanding the Tiankun's boundless power. Assuming mortal form, they condense the primordial essence, creating Pangu, apart, they aligned the celestial and terrestrial. Their radiance encompassed the four corners. Thus began the illustrious annals of Huanglong, as provinces were first demarcated.
Chixia speculates that we may be related to the person that they're speaking about. But then we get a hologram message from Zhenqi, the magistrate of Zhenzhou. She says, as the moon chasing festival approaches, the city welcomes visitors from all around the world, but she's looking forward to meeting one visitor more than anyone else, and that they are important not only to her, but to Zhenzhou and the whole of Huanglong, which is us, the rover. She says that she wants to meet with us to assist us and provide us the necessary permissions, and she advises that the people and soldiers assist us when the time arises. After that, we arrive to the gate of Zhenzhou, and we can sense that someone is watching us, and then they show us the mysterious person watching us.
There you are, my dearest seed of fate.
Baji explains that she plans to go to the academy to schedule an appointment for our physical examination and to report what happened. Yang Yang plans to go to City Hall to schedule our meeting with the magistrate and to report what happened. And us and Chixia head over to the Nexus Tower for our registration. Then we head over to City Hall to meet with Yang Yang. We have a conversation about the magistrate Zhenqi and her guard, Sanhua. They inform us that the magistrate should be inside the City Hall and say that she'd never really leave Zhenzhou unless it's under a threat or to leave for a business trip. Then we enter City Hall by ourselves because they can't come with us. And we meet with Sanhua, the bodyguard of the magistrate, who scans us with her eye and then introduces herself. She lets us know that the magistrate is currently away, but she told her to give us these items: a mangosteen fruit, a leaf, a sundial, and a sugar pearl candy. While Zhenqi is away, she wants us to explore the meanings of these items, and she thinks that this will help us find information we desire and be clues that will lead us to the truth about our past. Sanhua says that Zhenqi will be back in 3 days and is looking forward to meeting with us. But for now, she is currently busy with a task that only she must handle alone. She wants our help, but she also wants us to learn about the current situation before we make any decision. Sanhua tells us that her eyes can see the frequencies of all living beings, and that our frequency resembles Zhenqi's, which is undistorted and authentic in our original form, unlike everyone else. Then she updates our terminal and gives us her contact info, along with some utility items and a pass that grants us unlimited access to all regions of Zhenzhou. She explains that we can now go anywhere in Zhenzhou, and they gave us a room in City Hall. Then we leave and meet back up with Yang Yang and Chixia and tell them what just happened. They are worried about the current state of events, but they trust in General Jian, Jinshi, and their sentinel. We also show them the items and they speculate what they could mean. And then we head over to Hashu Academy with Yang Yang to learn more. We meet with Mortefi, who leads us to Baji, and we show her the items, and she recommends that we run a test on them. And while the items are being tested, Baji gives us our physical examination. She says that our terminal doesn't have the crownless data, so that confirms that we absorbed it with our body. She doesn't know how, but it seems there is another mechanism in our body capable of absorbing frequencies. And she notes that we don't have any signs of trauma, so that can't be the reason that we have amnesia. And she says that there seems to be another dimension or creature hiding in our body. Hey, remember that voice from earlier when the goddess punched us in our chests with her dimensional abilities? It could be both. Then we enter some simulated combat to figure out what's going on with our body. We gathered all the data that we need, but then something goes wrong and we start looping and seeing vision. A vision of a moon and the dreamless. And then we come back to our senses and explain what we saw to Baji. Baji says that our visions remind her of a past war, and she explains that the Sonoros Spare captures everything that once happened in a specific time and place, whether it's good or bad. Our arrival may have revived abnormal frequencies that they captured accidentally, and that remnant energy may give rise to memory manifestation of sentient beings that we may have encountered before. And then we go back over to Mortefi, who explains that the sundial is actually a puzzle box with a paper scroll inside, but we need a missing part to open it. We get the missing part from the workshop and give it to Mortefi. And then Baji tells us that the mangosteen is just a regular fruit, but the leaf isn't normal. She concludes that the leaf was sampled from an area struck by the wave-worn phenomena. The wave-worn phenomena are the anomalies activities that occurred after the lament, like the formation of tacit fields, the etheric sea, retroact rain, and gravity loss. The Sugar Pearl is determined to be a 20-year-old oral vaccine, and Mortefi fixes the sundial and gives it back to us. Then we look for some archives to help us solve the puzzle. The first one gives us some lore on the Sugar Pearl vaccine. It was made to combat the Novafever, a disease that primarily affected children under the age of 6, with pictures of researchers and a photo of a baby being fed the Sugar Pearl. The second archive talks about the first resonator. They describe them as someone with amnesia, with a tacit mark on their right hand, with both of their eyes and tacit mark having a golden halo when they exert their forte. And it says that during a battle of the Gorge of Spirits, a resonator fought a crownless and won, resolving the crisis. 3 days later, the battle concluded in triumph, with soldiers reporting seeing a resonator next to Jue the Sentinel, and that event marked the founding of Jinzhou that same year. So these are leading us to believe that the first resonator was Rover, based on the description, and this is probably something that happened in our past. We discussed this with Yang Yang, and we speculate that the baby in the photo might be us, and we learned that the Crownless is a tacit discord that embodies war itself, and it was made from the hatred of soldiers and fear of survivors. They speculated that its connection may be to the Threnodians. The Threnodians are some of the most powerful tacit discords, and a battle of the Threnodian long ago was to fend them off. It's said that Sentinel Jue manifested during the battle of Threnodian, and we learn about Lady Chang Li, who is the advisor to the magistrate Zhen Shi and her former teacher. The rover speculates that Zhen Shi was running out of time, and that's why she only gave us some scraps of the puzzle rather than putting it together herself. Or she may be a master strategist, leaving breadcrumbs to test us and mislead ill-intentioned people that may get a hold of these items. And after this discussion, we leave to go rest at City Hall, but Rover senses that someone is watching them still. And then we see a mysterious man and woman being watched by San Hua. We wake up the next morning, eat some breakfast, and plan to start looking for more clues, so we head to the city gate. And at the gate, we meet Jian Jin, who is trying to get past the gate to check on a soldier because their grandfather is worried about them, but the guards are giving her a hard time. We show them our access pass and say that she's with us, and they let us pass. And one of the guards points out that our pass is so important that we can literally leave with a whole army and no one would question us. Then we head over to the rear guard's base and ask a soldier about the person that Jianjin is looking for. We learn that he isn't a resonator or even a part of the Midnight Guards, but he seems to be determined to join and would secretly follow the troops since last year. The soldier says that he may be at the rear guard's camp, and since we're heading over there, he wants Yang Yang to check out 2 detection beacons that just went offline. We head over to the detection beacons and see some people. They apologize and explain that they were broken hungry and wanted to sell the beacon so that they could survive. Jianjin tells them that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing and tells them to return the parts. Then she gives them enough money and food to make it to the city. But then they attack her. But you know how she gets. She put them in a blender and then asks why they did that, because she literally just gave them food and money. So why did they even attack? They start chatting about how the army is running low on food, and because of the battle is so intense, they had to leave and then find some money and water. So they started doing this to do what they have to do so that they could survive. And then Jianjin basically says, I got it out the mud, you can too. And if you can't get a job, you can hit me up for a job. And then they give up and leave and head toward the city. Then we fix the beacons and head to the base. And at the base, we hear about the stresses of war that they're going through and how they're low on supplies, medical care, equipment maintenance, and personal management and logistics. We then go around helping out the wounded soldiers and learn that countless amounts of soldiers that risk their lives every day to make sure the people in the city are safe from the tacit discords. And thanks to General Jian, there are far fewer casualties. While Jianjin goes to look for the soldier she came here for, we ask some soldiers about the mangosteen. They explain that it's not a local fruit and it is only obtained through exports. And then they explain that they don't keep any because they often get mistaken for grenades. We meet back up with Jianjin and she said that she found the person that she was looking for and they're about to head back to let his grandfather know that he's okay. She says that she sparred with him for him to be able to make this decision, and he came to the conclusion that he isn't as strong as a resonator to be able to defeat the tacit discord. And Jianjin explains that she was happy to meet with us in hopes that we can come to the tea house. Then she leaves and we talk with Yang Yang, and Rover explains that Zhen Shi probably wanted us to know about the battle that is happening on the front line against the tacit discord. Then again, the voice comes from our body speaking, saying that it's hungry, and then we get another vision, but this time of what is currently happening on the front lines. We see General Jian and the Midnight Guards taking out many tacit discords. We learn that General Jian wields the power of the Qi Long, Huanglong/Teal Dragon, which is also the Midnight Ranger's emblem and the symbol of General Jian, the leader of the Midnight Rangers. And then we come to our senses and tell Yang Yang what just happened, saying that it felt like we were watching the battle through the eyes of a tacit discord. And Yang Yang speculates that something on the battlefield may have a connection to us. And Rova tells her about the voice, and she speculates that we may be able to resonate with tacit discord. And then we think back to Baiji's test on the leaf. The leaf fluctuations pointed out coordinates that lead them to Chiche Village. And then we head over to Chiche Village and we see a tacit field and clear the enemies. Then we investigate the area and find these things: a ritualistic wooden plaque and a strange tacit discord calling out for help, but it isn't asking us for help. It's made of the reverberations of the people that were in the village calling out for help. And it seems like someone is concealing the tacit field in the village from being discovered, so Yang Yang informed Chixia on what happened. And then we continue to investigate in search of any survivors. And we notice this area where it seems like people were fighting and notice some cards. And Yang Yang speculates that the Fraxidus is likely behind this. The Fraxidus is a group of humans obsessed with fusing humans and tacit discord, and they have been the cause of many terror attacks around the world. She lets us know that there have actually been signs of lower rank members called artificers in Jinzhou, and above the artificers are the overseers, the leaders with airy abilities and unknown intentions. They are a far bigger threat. No one really knows the true intention of the Fraxidus. Some members speak of the world's destructions, while others just seek eternal power. There is one particular overseer that is known to be insane, a man that sees no order and revels in destruction. They call him Scar, and the cards belong to him. Then we investigate some weird noises, and Yang Yang finds a cat. But then suddenly, boom, a portal pops up from behind her and captures her, and we are greeted by Scar. Scar explains that he sent Yang Yang away to a safe place so we don't have to worry. He just wanted her away so she doesn't sway our judgment. He says that he has a lot to share with us and heard that we lost our memories. He reveals that he and many others have been following us and watching us, but out of all of them, he's the only one that stepped forward with absolute honesty. He says that we are the unknown variable that they have been waiting for, and that forces have been fighting for our possession. He implies that everyone we've met so far knows how valuable we are, and we are just a pawn. He says that he sees us as a friend and wants to tell us the truth to deeper our mutual understanding. He explains that the Fraxidus didn't do this to the village and wants us to look around the village and say what we think happened. We guess that the villagers killed each other, and he says that we're right, but it is far more complicated than that, and tells us the people involved in the main plot of the story.
An innocent girl, a revered leader, and a flock of simple villagers. Next, what makes up our main plot? False devotion, fleeting kindness, collective deceit, senseless killings, and the one vulnerable soul pushed onto a path of destruction by the masses. Now, Rover, the story is yours to spin.
Then we go around the village looking at clues as Scar tells us the story based on the clues that we are finding. The clues are a torn diary from a little girl, probably the one that Scar mentioned earlier. And quick recap, this girl's family had to run away from monsters, and her uncle got separated from her parents. Then they found this village and stayed here with her, hoping that her parents would eventually show up one day. A birthday passed, and we learned that the villagers call her the Lucky Charm because she keeps the monsters away, but her parents still haven't shown up yet. And then 4 more birthdays passed, and the village head decided to make her their official daughter. But before that even happened, everyone in the village was kind to her. They even shared meals together. And the village head says that she can consider herself lucky because she is a child of Chiche Village. And she's happy, and with the little power she has, she continues to protect the village from the tacit discord. And then the next clue is a tree with papers that have the wishes of the villagers. And we learned that their wishes were actually being granted, but not in ways that they expected. One wished for money, and then his mom died and he got the money that she left for him. Another one wished to walk and his legs grew back, but then he couldn't walk anymore, and then questioned if his wish was taken away because he wasn't sacrificing enough. And they all eventually questioned if this was what they really wanted. And then we see a text on the wall saying, "Monster, monster, banish her. It's all her fault." And this is the story that Scar tells based on the evidence we found.
Our story begins here. Once upon a time, in a peaceful village, lived a flock of carefree lambs. In the day, they toiled for food, and when evening fell, they sought refuge from the looming threat of wolves. Fables, stories told and retold through the ages, the ancient art of conveying hidden truths through fiction. But they always draw from real life, don't they? The same story gets told by many, and each person brings their own spin, their own focus. Whatever you learn from it is just one of countless different interpretations. Like us now, caught in a carefully crafted plotline, a scheme I had no hand in. This village marks the beginning of my story with Jinzhou. So that magistrate led you here to meet me. Such a clever move on her part. One day, a shepherd visited the village. The shepherd brought them promises of abundance and protection. The lambs, drawn in by his words, soon lived in comfort and security. No, quite the opposite. The shepherd's arrival is only the beginning. With a wave of his hand, the shepherd could grant their every wish. His flock obeyed, bowing their heads, pleading for better food and shelter. They no longer had to struggle for survival, as their once meager lives were replaced with endless luxury. The flock worshipped their shepherd-turned-god, praising him and holding him in the highest regard. What's wrong? Does my story make you uncomfortable? Imagine you were one of those lambs, facing irresistible temptation and pressure from your peers. Wouldn't you bow down and beg for food from your master? Oh, so we agree already. You are right, but the world we live in falls short of our ideals. The shepherd still reigns, and the lambs have grown complacent. It's up to the two of us to make that ideal world a reality. The lambs reveled in endless bonfire parties, celebrating as each night passed. It was the only one to notice how its flock was dwindling away. Rover, do you think someone would give you what you want without taking anything from you? I once believed that too. Thought as long as I paid a high enough price, I could get my desired outcome. But true equality is scarce, always has been. The world was never a fair place, wouldn't you agree? To receive equal retribution, one must give more and more and more. When every wish comes with a hefty price, people weigh their options carefully. But when they can make someone else bear the price, they all rush to make more wishes. They don't consider they too may one day pay for another's selfish desire. Funny, isn't it? Later, the shepherd openly blamed the black lamb for the flock's decline. On the next day, the white lambs welcomed the rising sun as usual, but the black lamb was nowhere to be found. The shepherd introduced an unspoken rule to this village. One that our black lamb violated by telling the truth. Suddenly, the once doting god stopped fulfilling wishes, because no more sacrifices were being made. After witnessing the black lamb's actions and hearing from their almighty shepherd, what do you suppose the white lambs did? Those oblivious lambs. Little did they know the most fearsome demon was right under their noses.
By the way, if I sound different, it's because I have to re-record this section because I woke up, went to go edit, and my software just deleted half of the audio for no reason. So now I have to re-record. All right, moving on. Lock it. Scar then asks us a few questions before telling us the true story. By the way, none of these that you pick matter because he's going to say that you're right either way. The first question is, who do we think the culprit is behind the diminishing number of lambs? The white lambs themselves. They wouldn't have been killed in the first place if they never followed the shepherd, and their greed and indifference were the cause of this. The second question, what price did the lambs pay for their wishes? And the answer was their life. It was the most valuable thing they had to offer. And the final question, what happened to the black lamb? The shepherd granted the wishes by sacrifices, and the white lambs found out about the black lamb and they sacrificed it. And like I said, Scar tells us that we're right, and then he tells us the true story as he sees it.
Little lambs cowered and huddled in their village, terrified of the relentless wolf packs. Until a shepherd arrived, bearing the gift of wishes and providing shelter and sustenance. Slowly, the shepherd gained control over the flock, and the lambs lived contented lives. But this is not the end of our story. The shepherd found the solitary black lamb in his flock and offered to grant any wish it desired. In exchange, he wanted one of its companions as a sacrifice. The black lamb refused, and it was shunned by its flock, left without shelter or sustenance. After the Black Lamb's exile, more lambs continued to vanish. The shepherd then blamed the Black Lamb for breaking the rules and withheld his wish-granting power as punishment. From the very beginning, the lambs knew the risk of making wishes. They too could become sacrifices for those of others. But they always believed it wouldn't be them. Meanwhile, some lambs reasoned that since they had already risked being sacrificed for someone else's wish, it was then only fair to pass on that risk for a chance at fulfilling their own desires. And so they continued to play the game. They all knew the consequences, but chose to remain silent. Fearful, yet greedy, they followed the shepherd's orders and made wishes again and again, until one day, a brave black lamb spoke up, shattering the flock's facade, their illusion of a peaceful and happy life. The black lamb got in their way, and that of the shepherd's greedy pursuit, sparking hatred in their hearts. Suddenly, they could no longer ignore the blood and ashes of past sacrifices littering the ground.
After that, Scar tells us what happened in the village. An innocent maiden was sacrificed, and then the villagers ended up turning on each other in a ruthless fight. And all the shepherd had to do was kill the rebel, and that's how he kept the flock in check and maintained the status quo. Rover then questions why Scar became the shepherd, but he explains that he was never the shepherd and never will be. Him and us are the Black Lamb, the one who breaks the rules. Then he questions if the Black Lamb in his story will turn out how our story's version of the Black Lamb did. And then he uses his domain expansion and sends us to another realm. We fight some enemies in this realm and then enter a portal that takes us to Scar. We then fight with Scar, but mid-fight, Yang Yang wakes us up in the real world and tells us that it was all an illusion. Then the mysterious woman in red who was working with Scar comes out and stops him because he wasn't supposed to go this far. And they talked about this beforehand. If he went this far, she would step in, and then they leave through a portal. Yang Yang explains that Scar's abilities involve teleportation and manipulation of space. He trapped her in confinement not too far away from us, and she broke the barrier and rushed to us as fast as she possibly could. The tacit discord from earlier calls out for its brother, and we speculate that they may mean Scar since he was just there. We then tell Yang Yang everything that happened while she was gone. And she says that we can't just take Scar's words for granted, so we search where the sacrifice was held. And Rover actually senses that Sanhua was watching the entire time. And Sanhua informs the magistrate that Scar didn't harm us, and our meeting with Scar went as she planned. We continue to investigate with Yang Yang and go down into a cavern. We see another tacit discord crying for help and leads us to more clues, but Yang Yang suggests that we leave. She says that it made her uncomfortable. She could feel all the emotions and cries for help and couldn't handle it. Then we head back to Jinzhou and meet up with Chixia and tell her everything that happened. And Chixia explains to us that the Fraxidus are trying to make their own resonators. They think that there is no right or wrong when it comes to resonance powers, and everyone should have them. They use mechanical manipulation to merge part of tacit discords into human bodies. Chixia also mentions that the case of the village was dealt with and archived before Genchi even became the magistrate. It happened a very long time ago, and the culprits got arrested, and most of the villagers were relocated to new settlements, but there was no mention of the little girl. Yang Yang speculates that maybe Scar took her away and she's safe. And then we discuss and conclude that the magistrate's token was to lead us there and to tell us that the Fraxidus has their eyes on us. And then we solve the puzzle of the sundial and read the message inside. And it shows us a specific location in Jinzhou's Grand Library. We learn that the Grand Libraries are Huanglong's data security and are managed by the Regional Sentinels. They are only accessible to the magistrates and are rarely ever open to the public. The Grand Libraries have some of the most comprehensive and accurate information, and Yang Yang and Chixia says that if information is in there about us, we must be a very important and legendary person, and that we must have a strong connection to Jinzhou City and maybe all of Huanglong. And then we head to City Hall and start making our way to the Grand Library, and we have to solve a bunch of puzzles. By the way, during these puzzles, we collect some sono discs, and I think they reveal the names of the other sentinels, because we saw one's name earlier in the story, which was Jue, and the other ones are Yu, Shang, Ji, and Gong. But this could also just be something that I made up, because there are only 5 names, and they said that there are 6 6 cities and each of them have a sentinel, so I don't know. Moving on, we make it to the Grand Library but don't see anyone. Then out of nowhere, Scar pops out saying that we let him here and now he plans to blow the whole place up. But then boom.
I wonder why. So you've laid a trap for me. Interesting. Do you really think you can trap me here?
You will not escape.
What a shame I can't stay and play with you a bit longer. Till we meet again, dear friends.
You're not going anywhere.
And then we have to fight Scar again, but this time he transforms. But we beat him. We leave his domain expansion and see that he is detained right in the front of us. And the rover says that she knows that he was following the entire time and just went with the plan. And Scar says that we hurt his feelings because we chose the magistrate side. And now that we've caught him in the trap, he wants to know how this was planned. And then we get a flashback to our meeting with Jen Chi. After we solved the puzzle, we noticed that 2 symbols were glowing. And those symbols basically said, meet me here at this time. And then we met up with Jen Chi. She introduces herself and apologizes that she was away and wasn't able to be hospitable. An emergency had occurred, so she was only able to give us those token items. She explains that she was away searching for Sentinel Jue, and she wants us to keep this a secret because when the Sentinel is absent, chaos is bound to ensue and lead to civil unrest. She says that Jue is being held captive by the Fraxidus, and she had to postpone our meeting to look for his whereabouts. She hasn't found Jue yet, but she knows that Scar is the culprit. She explains that the Fraxidus plans to cause another lament and cause disasters worldwide, and that Scar had several objectives upon infiltrating Jinzhou: to track us down, test our strength, and make us join their cause, abduct Sentinel Jue, and to resurrect the Threnodian. They want us to join because they somehow know that we are special and want our strength on their side. And if we don't join them, they'll most likely try to kill us so we don't get in their way. She explains that she has a plan to capture Scar, so the Fraxidus won't be as much of a threat after we capture him for the time being. And if we help, she will ensure our safety. And then the rover agrees to join. And we explain to her that the tokens did help us learn more about our identity. Genchi explains that the Threnodians are a big threat, and they are the enemies of human civilization, born from the dark side of our collective consciousness, and we must defeat them to protect all of humanity. She explains that the Fraxidus is accelerating the Threnodians' revival. She believes in us and think that we will be able to help because we were able to absorb the Crownless, a tacit discord closely related to the Threnodian, and with our bare hands we are able to resonate with other tacit discord. Huanglong's records mentions a hero with similar powers who saved the nation during the Threnodian War. And she says that this could be a lead to help us remember our past, which low-key spoilers, I'm pretty sure they're talking about the rover, because the line she mentions where she says dating back in Jinzhou's establishment, they changed the he and she around when you play the male rover, so yeah, I'm pretty sure it is us. And we tell her about our vision we saw of Jue in us. She explains that she resonated with Jue and this aligns with Jue's memory, and explains that the story she mentioned before, it may actually be us, a presence in the past by Sentinel Jue's side, bonded by unbreakable trust. And we question if resonators could even live that long. Genchi says that it's unprecedented, but so many mysteries remain unsolved about our past, including our age. She explains that Jue's last piece of information pointed to the Nordfall Bearing, which is where we should find the Threnodian. She explains that she simply wants to help us, and that's it. Our help would be appreciated, but we don't have to feel obligated due to the information that she just gave us. The responsibility of protecting the people should fall on her shoulders. She has faith in the people and soldiers of Jinzhou and her ability, and we deserve to make our own decision after uncovering our true identity. She appreciates everything we've done for Jinzhou and is ready to accommodate and assist us in any future decisions we make. We can even leave Jinzhou and the entire Huanglong if we wish. And she says if we ever need her, just ask for help, and wants us to keep this conversation secret. And then we go back to the present, and she says that Scar is under arrest for multiple felonies and asks if he has anything to say. And he's just looking at us like yeah, just start the questioning already. Then we start questioning. First question, why did they capture Jue? Because the Sentinels can predict and prevent future events, and they didn't want Jue to get in the way of their plan. Next, why they want to revive the Threnodians. The Threnodians hold the key to their ideal. Together, they will bring the promise, true lament, and we will embrace the new world that is bound to come. Next question, what is the lament? The lament brings death and destruction, and countless reverberations that will be reflected, overlap, and interwoven during the lament. They will be our salvation, and the only path to a new life form and civilization. So they kind of want to force evolution between humans and tacit discords to create a new life form. And then the next question, why was Scar following Rover? They want and need Rover to join them. Then Gen C says that there's no way Scar set all of this up by himself and thinks that there has to be another overseer. And Scar basically confirmed it. Then Scar questions Gen Chi. What if the disappearance of Jue wasn't even due to the Fraxidus? Would she be curious? And she is interested and wants to know what he's on about, but only she is able to hear this. Scar whispers in her ear and she is left shocked. And Scar says that there's more. What if he told her that Jue also prophesied this a long time ago? Jue abandons them now of all time. And Scar tells the Rover that we are one of the Black Lambs that have been chosen to join the Fraxidus in ushering the new world. And that when we discover what we really are, we will join them with no hesitation. And they will be waiting with open arms, looking forward to that day with anticipation. Then Scar is put in jail. That's it. Just a black screen. Scar is put in jail. Come on, bruh. Free my nigga Scar, man. He ain't do nothing wrong. Who hasn't done a little terrorizing and scheming and destroying the world and stuff? Come on. Moving on. We question what Scar said to Gen Chi. And she says that it's too sensitive and she doesn't want to say anything without first confirming. This could just be a way for the Fraxidus to build this trust between them. And she still plans to get Jue back because the Sentinel is very important to Jinzhou. And then she tells us that Jue actually left a message for us.
To the Awakened One. When raindrops fall upstream, please head to the Northfall Barrens and seek General Jian of the Midnight Rangers.
And then she tells us about the Black Shores, an organization shrouded in mystery with members who usually keep their identity hidden. She says that when we awaken, one of their members actually contacted them for information about it. She lets us know that they aren't a group like the Fraxidus. They've been watching the situation in Jinzhou and plan to provide their assistance. And it was thanks to their help that our meeting went smoothly with Genchi. She then shows us their symbol, which is a black balloon, and says that this is the way that we can identify them. She plans to find Jue in return and says that it may be worth our time to look into the Black Shores. And then we reach for the photo of the black bloom and get another vision of us with Jue. But this time, the Rover, we can see them clearly, and they also have a black bloom on. We tell Genchi about it. She says that since the Fraxidus is following us, we should look into the Black Shores. They could potentially be our ally. Rover then leaves, and we hear a conversation between Genchi and Sanhua about Chang Li. She was recently ambushed in the Central Plain, but now she's leaving to go to the capital, and Sanhua is worried that someone from the Fraxidus may attack her. Genchi tells her not to worry about it, and she leaves. Then Genchi gets a call from Chang Li, and they discuss what happened. And Chang Li says that everything is going according to the prophecy of Jue, and she'll meet with the Rover in person soon enough. Genchi reveals to her what Scar whispered to her, that Jue predicted they would have to fight one day, in a fight that will shape Jinzhou's future. And she says that she isn't surprised due to their previous conversations and the message that Jue left for her. She says that she last sensed Jue in Mount Firmament, the place where the first people of Jinzhou lived and where Jue first manifested. And she says that what Scar says will not sway her determination or turn her away from Jue. His words only confirmed her theory, that the fight between her and Jue is just a precursor. Her job as magistrate selected by the Sentinel themselves is unchanged, and she will fulfill her duty with her own judgment. The next day, we meet up with Chixia and Yang Yang again and tell them what happened. We ask them about the connection between General Jian, Genchi, and Sentinel Jue. They tell us that Jian used to be a military doctor and give us some information about Jinzhou's past.
The Honorable Madame Jinzi, our great magistrate of Jinzhou, was handpicked by Sentinel Jur. Her status as the Sentinel's appointed resonator is rare among all past magistrates. Our Jinzhou was leaderless for years until Jur finally chose her to be the next magistrate, and she answered the call. To further elaborate, we must start with the battle beneath the Crescent. The Northfall Barrens, scarred by countless wars, discarded weapons scattered like bones. Our soldiers had fought to reclaim the land for years, to no avail. Overthrax, the dreadful Threnodian monster, fed on the frequencies of weapons, turning our fallen soldiers into deadly tacit discords. General of the Midnight Rangers, Geshu Lin, bravely rose to confront the threat. As Twin Moons aligned, General Geshu Lin vowed to vanquish evil, raising his blade against the blood-red crescent that foretold destruction. His sword blazed with black flames, laying waste to all who dared stand in his way. Victory seemed certain. Until the retroact rain began to fall. Raindrops fell upwards as in the past. Monsters raged, loyal souls fell to blood-soaked sands, infernal carnage. Issuing his last command, Geshu Lin demanded all soldiers stand firm, no matter what happened. Sacrificing his body to the black flames for power, Geshu charged at the Overthrax with all his might, and he was never seen again. After the fall of their leader, the remaining soldiers despaired until the deafening roar of Qinlong struck like lightning. A lone youth bravely stood up to lead a hard-won retreat. After the battle, that young man who tamed the wind ascended to fame, becoming the new general of the Midnight Rangers, selected by Sentinel Jur. On the other hand, General Geshu was blamed for the massive losses that occurred under his command, earning him a notorious reputation in Huanlong. That battle struck us hard, but our sentinel rose from its long slumber to select a new magistrate who guide us into the future. Despite the previous disaster, Jinzhou was off to a promising start under our sentinel and the new magistrate's guidance. The people held hope for a better tomorrow.
They explained that when Genchi first joined office, people were skeptical of her due to her age, and they only trusted her because of Sentinel Jue. But over time, they grew to trust and accept Genchi. And then they asked if Genchi gave us any clue about our past. And we tell them everything about Jue asking us to go to Northfall Bearings, about there being another overseer in the Black Shores watching over us. They explained to us that the Northfall Bearings is very dangerous and is the frontline defense against the Ternodian, and that there being more than one overseer means that they're probably planning something big, and we shouldn't engage with them because it may be playing into a trap. And then we show them the black bloom, and then they suggest that we go around learning about the flower. And then we head over to Grandma Lin, and she says that she doesn't know anything, but tells us about Verena because she is a plant type resonator. We find Verena and ask her about the flower. She says that it's unusual and could be a newly cultivated species, and that it has an overflowing remnant energy. So she guessed that it's a unique remnant plant created by a certain resonance energy, and she would actually need the plant to tell us what kind of resonance energy. And we asked Verena if she can make flowers similar to those so that we can lure out the Black Shores. And as Verena does that, we notice some black flowers in the surrounding area and speculate that someone has been following us. We tell them to head back to the city while we stay to confront the person following us. And after noticing and fighting some Fraxidus NPCs, we wait.
Looking for me?
Oh, here you are.
We question who she is, and she says that she is one of the bloom bearers of the Black Shores. We notice the black bloom in her hair, and she says it represents their mission to save the world. We ask what they're planning, and she says to recruit many talents as they can and to save the world from impending doom in a very sarcastic manner, and just simply stating lines from a rule book. And then she asks, hey, so are we gonna join? And Rova says that it doesn't even sound like she's trying to save the world, like, because she's very sarcastic. And she basically says, nah, I really don't. Like, it really could blow up tomorrow, and I wouldn't care. I just want to have fun. She says it's about power, to take down any prey without mercy, and to indulge in desires for the ultimate pleasure. And then it makes us question if the Black Shores are any different from the Fraxidus. And she says she would love to live like the Fraxidus, but duty calls. She explains that the Black Shores garden is home to many green fruits, and that they'll make us the most special seed of them all. Her duty is to nurture and safeguard seeds like us, and allow us to blossom into luxurious fruit. And once the fruit ripens, she gets to pick it and indulge in the sweetness of her labor. So basically, she just wants us to get stronger so she can have a good fight. She says,
You're just like what Civilization Simulation Sandtable Tethys has told us. I can feel such explosive potential within you. One day, you'll surely bear the most beautiful fruit imaginable.
She says that she's been protecting us and getting rid of all the pests that try to get in our way, and that we don't have to be on edge. She won't do anything strange. She tells us to never mention her and the Fraxidus in the same sentence again. She gets frustrated even thinking about them laying their hands on us, and that we are hers and hers alone. She doesn't like sharing. She says the reason we were able to have that conversation with Jen Shi was because she kept the Fraxidus away. She says that she's done with the questions and will be watching over us because we are a very special seed, and she feels something familiar about it. And then out of nowhere, she disappears and she tells us her real name.
My name is Camellia.
And then we call Yang Yang and tell her what happened. And then we meet with them in the shopping district because Chixia noticed the guy acting suspicious. And then we show up and she points out the suspicious guy, which is Alto. And she says that he was with a younger girl earlier, but she disappeared. And then Chixia starts to question Alto.
I'm Alto, just a humble information broker. I've been traveling around, helping people out in my own small way. My supervisor, she's like a super big deal. She's an ancient being, born with this planet we're living on. She's a will of a star, the reverberation of everything in this world.
And then Encore, along with Verena, walks up to us excited to see him. And Alto says, yeah, that's the girl that he was looking for. Encore confirms that she knows him and says that he isn't really a bad guy, and that he just sells stuff without a license, eavesdrops on people's commercial advice, and pranks little kids. Verena explains that her and Encore met on her way home. She says that she had to stop her from eating poisonous mushrooms and gave her an antidote. And then they ask why Encore was even there, and she says that Alto told her to watch over the rover. And then we all just look at Alto. And Alto says he'll explain. They're here on important business. And then boom, he suddenly puts down a mist bomb and him and Encore just run away. We split up trying to find them, and then Rover finally finds them. Alto explains that they weren't really running away, they just wanted to get us alone. They explain that they won't do anything bad to us and they just have a few questions, and figured that it was probably our idea to have Chixia and Yang Yang wear those fake black blooms to lure out the Black Shores. And they mentioned how we probably worked with a plant type resonator and that they know one as well, probably Camellia. And then they questioned what we wanted from them and reveal that they are Black Shore members. They figured we probably want info about our past that they know, but Alto explains that he is an information broker, so we aren't gonna get those answers for free. So they want us to come with them.
We want you to come with us to an abandoned Court of Savante facility to help us recover a resonance beacon.
And then they'll tell us what they know so far. And then we question if we can really trust them, and Alto gives us a real black bloom, and then he has Encore do her a little cute smile face. We had set the deal and planned to meet with them at the location. And then we meet back up with the group and explain what happened. And Verena confirms that it's a real flower due to its unique remnant energy. And then they tell us to be careful when we meet them. And then we go to meet Alto and Encore. And then they explain why we're here.
The Court of Savante is a mysterious scientific research organization. They're best known for their research in automata mechanics. But what really put them on the map isn't that. It's all the bizarre experiments they did. One day, out of the blue, every single Court of Savante member vanished. The last words from that mysterious researcher, the Court of Savante Committee's chairman, was this. You want my research? You can have it! I left everything I gathered in the Court of Savante's labs. Now, you'll just have to find it. We've set up resonance beacons worldwide to monitor the lament, collecting data in real time. This is how we predict when the next lament is happening. Recently, something went wrong with our lament detection system, and we suspected it had something to do with a damaged beacon around the area. That's why we've been sent here, to investigate the case.
Which I just want to say right quick, I love that they made that One Piece reference here, bro. Like, it's literally my favorite anime and manga. I literally have another channel, like, where I cover One Piece content, so, like, I really appreciate that. Anyways, moving on. And then we go over to the facility and do a puzzle to get inside. And when we enter, Alto says that he realized what the researchers were trying to do. They tried to recreate the retroact rain, and he explains what retroact rain is.
The retroact rain is essentially a form of condensed remnant energy from the etheric sea. Various events across space and time from every dimension are recorded in the form of remnant energy. The retroact rain conjures illusions of past events for those exposed to it.
And then we split up to find the power system. And while we do that, we see some illusions of the researchers. We learned that their research was sponsored by a Fraxidus overseer, and they wanted to recreate the retroact rain in hopes of recreating the civilization of gods and seeing the goddess again, so they can change the world, saying that they want to recreate the divine miracle that they saw in the past.
Wow! She's so pretty!
Rover, about this person. Knew it.
And then we head over to the basement to look for the beacon, but we run into a mech monster who most likely ate it, and Encore fights it. And after it's defeated, Alto explains,
According to our findings earlier, researchers who worked here were probably only a small faction of the Court of Savante Committee. They were likely studying an ancient civilization they deemed to be divine beings. Somehow, they believed this ancient civilization had once visited the mire, which led to their attempts at recreating those past events with artificial retroact rain. And when they failed to recreate the retroact rain, they resorted to making a replica of the lost civilization instead. To get their desired results faster,
They started feeding this replica various frequencies, datasets, and mechanical constructs. And we've seen what that ended up with. It turned into a monster, driven by the frequencies of hunger, devouring everything in its path. It was probably the culprit behind the disappearance of those folks, and I suspect the Fraxidus Overseer mentioned in that log may have something to do with it all.
And then Alto says now he can tell us what we want to know about the Black Shores. And we ask him 5 questions. What do the Black Shores do? They observe the lament and study its powers to provide early warnings for countries worldwide. Next question, why have they been stalking us? They don't have any bad intentions. They like our skills and methods and want us to join them to help save the world from the lament crisis. And then we ask about Camellia, and they confirm she is a member and took on this mission because we caught her eye. And then we ask why they are in Jinzhou. They sense the Threnodian is about to be revived and came to tell the magistrate. And the final question, what is our relationship with the Black Swords? And he says that he doesn't know much, but he can tell us this isn't our first time being reawakened. And the last time we were reawakened, we woke up at the Black Shores. And Alto explains we share the same goal, to get rid of the Threnodian. And he mentions that the black bloom he gave us earlier is actually a key to their headquarters, and we may need it. And then they say the mission is complete and collect the beacon, but something goes wrong, and they rush upstairs. And we see real retroact rain is actually happening. And then we get a call from Yang Yang telling us that Jinzhou is under attack and it's a TD outbreak. And then we swap over to General Jian, who also noticed the retroact rain starting. A ranger lets him know that there are 500 soldiers prepared and medically cleared for combat after receiving the antidote to the retroact rain. They have reported minimal hallucinations and no adverse effect, but some people can still see hallucinated phantoms in the rain, and Jian is one of them, but he doesn't tell them because he doesn't want them to worry. And he says as soon as the rain stops, they're going to march into the Northfall bearing. We learn that stronger emotional connections to the area affected by the retroact rain can increase the effects of the retroact rain, and the effects start hitting Jian really hard. He hallucinates a ranger reporting to him about Jian himself when he was a medic in the past. And then he hallucinates a conversation that he had with the old General Geshu Lin about the retroact rain that they had back then. Jian, as a medic back then, advised that they shouldn't go into the retroact rain because of the illusions, but Geshu Lin wanted to move forward because he saw it as the only chance they'll get to attack the enemy, and after waiting this long for them to appear. Geshu didn't want to sit back and wait the rain out. He wanted to attack the enemy. And Jian remained silent. Geshu questioned if he would remain silent when his comrades are killed right before his eyes. He says no, they must go on and continue to kill the monsters. All the retroact rain does is make illusions, and his soldiers won't fall for such illusions. He will pave the way for them and crush the enemy with his ability. And no matter how many men died, they will win the battle by any means necessary. Then Geshu questions the current Jian on what he would do if he was in Geshu's shoes on that same day. Jian remains silent, and Geshu says that he would never answer those soldiers with such silence and cowardice. And then enemies appear next to Geshu's illusion, asking Jian to prove himself. And then Jian finally answers Geshu.
General Geshu Lin, we fight to protect what we cherish. And we cherish our comrades not out of cowardice or fear, but out of trust. The trust in their lives' worth. I cannot assure you I am always making the right choice, General. But we should never build our victory on top of endless sacrifices.
Is that so? As I see it, you're cut from the same cloth, you and I.
Perhaps we are indeed, General. I share at least one thing with you. I too will draw my blade to fight for what I believe in, and I'll stop at nothing to see it through.
Then a ranger reports to Jian that they sensed an intense frequency reaction from a tacet field nearby, and that the moon is turning full just like Jian predicted. It looks just like it did during the battle beneath the crescent, which is that battle where Geshu Lin fought. And then they take position and get ready to engage. And then Jian mentions the prophecy of Jue. When the moon turns full, a rovering traveler will appear. And Jian notices that the tacet discards aren't attacking yet, which means someone may be controlling them. And then we swap over and see the person who is controlling them. And then we swap over to Rover's side where we see them finish off some monsters. Yang Yang mentions that the full moon and rain must be what Genchi was talking about. And then we get a pre-recorded announcement from Genchi telling the people to stay calm and evacuate. And then they mention that Tao Chi is here if we want a better rundown of the situation. And then we go over to Tao Chi and she introduces herself as the Ministry of Development Director in charge of defense fortification. She thanks us for lending a hand and then explains that the barrier on the city is a defense against the retroact rain. But if the Tacit Discords break it, they will start spawning inside the city itself. Also explains that Jinzhou has been a war battleground for centuries, and that's why the Thernodian that we have deals with the concept of war itself, which war leads to death. And once the retroact rain reaches its final stage, there will be thousands of phantoms of soldiers and Tacit Discords. And that is why they constructed the barrier. They are usually just hallucinations, but the problem is the Thernodian's power enhances the retroact rain and makes the illusions more realistic to the point that they can actually inflict real harm onto the human, which is what happened during the Battle of the Crescent. Alto says that Geshu-Lin sent back recordings of the rain to the Black Shore, and they theorize that the Thernodian's abnormal moon sightings and retroact rain may have been linked. They can't predict the retroact rain, but they know it's a sign linked to the Thernodian's revival, as well as the increasing number of Tacit Discord outbreaks. And the Black Shore say that they need to return to base to send out warnings because of the revival of the Thernodian and Jinzhou will trigger catastrophic events that will affect other nations. They leave and another wave of TDs appear. We fight them and rescue some soldiers. Then we notice that the moon seems to look more blurry, just like the battle beneath the crescent. And then Genchi calls and then we inform her on everything. She says that this reminds her of Jue's prophecy and notes that this is the time. And then we head over to the Northfall bearings with Yang Yang. We swap back over to Jian and the Rangers who are fighting some monsters. Tao Chi informs Jian on everything and he plans to clear a way for us to get to him safely, but he notices a thundering Memphis. And then we swap over to Yang Yang and Rover who see some fallen soldiers who mention the thundering Memphis. Then suddenly the thundering Memphis appears behind us, but Jian stops it before it could get to us. After defeating it, Jian mentions that it's made of a blend of falling soldier and will only keep respawning if more soldiers die here. And then he gives us an antidote for the retroact rain. Jian says that he heard we are similar to the legendary hero that once absorbed the Thernodian, and that he heard from Jue we would come to the Northfall bearings to reclaim our powers from the Overthrax Thernodian. And he says that Jue told him that before Genchi ever was appointed. And then he explains.
You might have noticed something off about that moon. We call it the Void Plenilune. Once it fully takes shape, Overthrax, the Threnodian of War, would be reawakening soon. It is an ancient terror that reigns over our land, capable of devouring weapon frequencies to enhance itself. The Northfall Barrens have become a massive graveyard of weapons after countless battles. Those weapons would have made it even stronger than before. But we must act now. The Void Plenilune is already visible. We must contain the Threnodian swiftly. Any delay could allow it to recover and become harder to deal with.
And then we head back over to the base, and as we're heading over there, we see the Overthrax statue lift up from the water, built from the repurposed weapons and debris. We make it to the base and are greeted by Jian Jin, who says that she wants to help. Jian speculates that the cause of all these monsters appearing is the Overthrax statue, and we need to make a plan to attack it while it's still weak.
I will now recap our plan. Konglin, your team will take the cliffs for fire support. Yuehui, your team will charge enemy lines to pave way for the special task force. I'll join Rover, Yang Yang, and Jianshin to create an opening for our main forces and take down the Threnodian.
After that, Jian explains that the next move is to reclaim the Disruptor and break through the barrier. And then Mortefi and Baiji explains to us that they established connection to the Disruptor, but it's out of power. And that there are a bunch of Tacit Discords targeting the Disruptor that need to be cleared out. Rover and Yang Yang will go secure the Disruptor and fix the backup. Jian Jin will defend the base, and Jian will distract the Tacit Discords. We all meet back up, get the confirmation and authorization to use the Disruptor, then boom, we shoot down the barrier and rush deeper into Northfall Valley. We fight a lot of enemies, with them increasingly getting stronger the closer we get to the Threnodian. And as Rover and Jian head closer and closer, Jian Jin and Yang Yang decide to stay behind and hold some enemies off while we deal with the Threnodian. And with the help of everyone, we finally make it to the core. We see another moon, and then suddenly the Threnodian reconstructs the crownless frequencies and we fight against the crownless. But after we defeat the crownless, the frequencies from the crownless are absorbed into the moon, and then the moon uses those frequencies to create another being, the same being we have been seeing in our visions, the Dreamless, protecting the moon. So we fight it, and mid-fight it starts resonating with the moon and shooting out big attacks. Jian figures that the moon is the enemy's core, and that's why they're protecting it, so we need to target the moon. But then this happened. we absorb some frequencies of the Dreamless and gain a new form of Havoc power. And then we continue the fight with the Dreamless, Blade of Extinction. And then after a long fight, we finally defeat the Dreamless with Jian's help. And we notice that the moon, which is the Threnodian Overthrax, starts to retreat and leave. And then the Dreamless activates a self-destruct with a big explosion that goes off, and we die. Wait, no, we don't. The rover's tacit mark and eyes start to glow, and we notice a little divine-looking creature in the front of us absorbing the energy of the explosion. And after absorbing all of that, bro says he's still hungry. Bro is gluttony himself. He flies towards us excitedly and then falls asleep and then goes back into our body. Yep, that is the creature that was in our body throughout the story. And then the place starts collapsing, so we leave. And then...
Gather round, I have a tale to spin. Our feather-haired maiden faces a horde of beasts. And just in time, a ray of light. Sunbeams burst through the clouds, banishing darkness out of sight. From the statue emerged two, guess who we have? None other than General Jian and the legendary rover. And lo, ruins fell, a colossus shattered, the Overthrax meets its defeat. Mountains and rivers exulted in glee as the war's finale came to be. As they say, why fear when fate is ours to shape? Amidst setbacks, heroes will rise to conquer. Their determination fuels the fire of hope in our darkest hour. Under starlit skies we battled, divine loom roaring above. Now victorious, our songs of triumph shall shake the clouds. And our story goes on.
And that is it. Boom, the end. I'm finally done recording. Yo, I had to record this twice. Oh my God, it's finally over. Bro, this story, I actually thoroughly enjoyed this story. I know a lot of people didn't like the beginning acts of this, but I pretty much enjoyed the whole thing. Like, I was intrigued the whole time. But that's for a whole separate video that I plan to do. But bro, that's it. If you enjoyed this video, please comment and let me know what you think about the story, bro. And that's it. Like and subscribe if you want to, please. Actually, please. I had to record this twice, bro. I need at least like 20 likes. But hey, man, that's it for me. I gotta go echo from. So peace.